Good morning and welcome to Office Hours, the show where we answer your technical media production questions 7 days a week. Jason, let's get right into it.
Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida asks, since sound design does not have any driver for the MixPre-3 II, how do you have your MixPre connected to a Mac?
Go ahead, Jason.
I think you mean sound devices, and it's a fully class-compliant driver, which means you plug it in and it works just straight away.
Alex?
Yeah, and the Mac, using the Mac MIDI tools, you can see all the channels that are available to it. So you can also see that through something like Loopback. So it is very easy to work with on a Mac.
Next question.
Guy Cochran in San Diego, California asks, what drive speed is needed to edit footage from the Immersive camera? My system is dropping frames on the downloadable Blackmagic design demo footage.
I think Alex knows a little something about this. Go ahead.
All the speed you can get. So we're borrowing a Thunderblade from OWC. They were kind enough to send us one for the tests, and even then, we're not getting all 90 frames a second. so it is. But it is the Thunderblade. By the way, we're kind of surprised that it actually does do. They say it does 6.6 gigabytes per second. We were a little disappointed it was only doing 6.5. so anyway, but you're gonna need something. You're gonna need very, very fast drives. That you can't. It is so much data that there's not enough compute and drive space to really seamlessly work with 90 frames a second at 8K per eye. But it makes a huge difference. The Thunderblade has been kind of a lifesaver for us, being able to in this test round, and we'll probably end up getting one just because I don't know how we would do the production without it. So that kind of speed is what you're going to want for pretty much any kind of production work. You also want to get a fast machine. So that's it. And to put it in perspective, without noise reduction, it's not too bad. You're getting maybe a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 render time. With the noise reduction that you may want to add for some of the footage, you get to 30-to-1 or 40-to-1 really fast on the compute, and that's with a Mac M3 Ultra. so it is, yeah. So you're talking about some real render times, coming into this. This is a serious, it's a grown-up camera. So it's, and we're, the shooting with the camera is super easy. It's just the processing of figuring that out. And we're still digging into it. So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm working on optimizing the project files and optimizing my settings to make sure that I can get smoother playback. But we're also, I'm going back to the old-fashioned. Most of my stuff is singular clips. I'm not trying to cut between things. And so I'm capturing something all the way through. And in that environment, I'm rendering little samples, along is this working? Is this working? This is what I used to do in computer graphics to get the full, I want to look at it on my headset at a relatively high resolution, maybe not the final resolution, but a high resolution. And I want to see how my color correction's working, how does the framing working, that type of thing. I'm breaking it up into little 5-second renders just to see is this working? And then overnight, run it. I have one running right now. I started last night. so it's of the stuff we shot on Friday. And so it was a 9-hour render of 3 minutes with noise reduction. So we'll see what it looks like when we, maybe later this morning.
Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Danny Lavallo in Torrington, Connecticut asks, which resolution is preferable when uploading video to YouTube, 4K or 1080p?
Courtney?
Well, it depends on a couple of things. It depends on what you authored your video in. Was it shot in 4K, edited in 4K, and rendered in 4K before you uploaded it? YouTube re-encodes pretty much everything that you put up there, and it depends on your internet connection. If you've got a high-speed internet connection, go for it, and then it will be available in 4K and lower speeds. If your content doesn't really lend itself to super high resolution, if you're just a talking head, 1080p will certainly be faster and easier. So that's a solution that will get it up there faster. And YouTube, of course, will re-encode it probably anyway and build a manifest for multiple resolutions. But many people won't be able to appreciate HEVC or the 4K resolution, but YouTube, it is available, and those that want it can see it if you want to make it available.
And Alex?
Yeah, the 4K, if you have the bandwidth, as Courtney said, if you have the bandwidth and you posted the whole thing in 4K and shot the whole thing in 4K, then I would absolutely upload it in 4K. And then if you stream anything over 1080p, if you happen to be streaming, you're going to get better quality out of it. But it's definitely going to look better at 4K and at 1080p if you upload it 4K, because it gives the encoders more to work with.
Next question.
From the QR code, Scott Pulsiver in Philadelphia asks, I am seeking to install an in-ear wireless monitoring system to integrate with Dante. Presume up to 4 participants, not including remote guests. What are the tiers of solutions for comparison? Thanks.
Alex.
There's a lot of little ones that are out there. The ones that I'm most familiar with are the Shures. So there's the 350, the PSM, I believe it's 350, 300, the 900, and the 1000, and those are all in different tiers. Those are still going to be the 350 is still starting at, I think, about $1,000 an ear. I mean, $1,000 a person. So it goes up from there for the Shures, and those are the ones that we've used usually when it matters. Of course, Sennheiser makes a couple, but they're still going to be pretty high up there. The entry level, I would say, is the X5s. I've seen people use the X5s. I would not use them on a stage. So the X5s I would use we may get, not maybe the X, I'm not going to get the X5s, but you may get something smaller that's $300 or $400 a person. If you're in a studio or in a controlled environment, like you just want them to have something wireless that they can talk to. It sounds like you're not trying to do a concert. You just want people to have wireless to walk around. If they're on stage and there's a lot of rebar, you're at any distance away from them, spending less than $1,000 a unit, per pair is probably going to be problematic. They're going to hear stuff that isn't going to work. So it depends on how close you are to them. But if you can put them up relatively high and the person is in a in a controlled environment, you could probably get away with something that's maybe $300 to $500 a unit. So those are some of the X5 is kind of the entry level. There's one in between. Let's see here that I just Galaxy Audio makes less expensive in-ear monitors, not Dante though, said Chris. And the way we would, most of these transmitters for the in-ear monitors, most of the transmitters are XLR in. So what we would typically do is use an Avio. Just have an Avio, and you can have one Avio for 2 transmitters and do left, right, just give whatever you want individually. That makes it relatively easy. If you want the same thing to go back to all of them, you can split it out if you want to. It's not hard. For us, we use Avios a lot to just tie analog things back into the system. I don't think there's any in-ears that I know of that are Dante direct.
Yeah, and for the longest time, the goal, and still is, the gold standard as being the Shure PSM 1000 system for wireless in-ears. The problem is it didn't come out with Dante until now. So Shure did just release in the last 6 months or so. They have the new, if you want this native, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. The Axient series, which is their flagship, now comes in a in-ear system. So they do have a dual channel and a quad PSM. And you can see, just looking at the price of this in US dollars, the dual system starts at about $5,000. That is just for the transmitter. Then you've got the body packs, which are, thousands of dollars. So if you want that natively integrated, now, of course, if it's mission critical in a professional touring environment, you probably have the budget for this. If you're a large band, like if you're Taylor Swift, you probably would want something like this. But I think Alex's suggestion of if you just want to start with something more affordable, like a PSM 300 for about $1,000 per channel, or 900 or whatever it is in the US, you can get those Avio adapters. Alex, you wanted to add some?
Yeah, one more that the one that I was trying to think of that I have seen in medium-sized studios to use are MiPros, MiPro. I wouldn't say that they're 100% stable, and they're only a little bit less than, they're about $600 or $700 a person. I would try to go up to the PSM 300s if I could at that price.
Just a reminder, you can continue to ask questions on this show during the show. If you don't know how to do that, you can use Makana, our Q&A system, where you can post those questions, vote on those questions, which helps drive the show. And, of course, you can chat with us live, which lots of people are doing right now. If you don't know how to do that, go to officehours.global/join and sign up for the newsletter, and we'll send you the information that you need. Let's go to the next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Chris Dolan in Florida asks, currently using XLR female to 3.5 millimeter patch cable for audio into ATEM external audio rig. This has phase issues in Final Cut Pro. Should I use a Y-split plus Radial ProISO or other option? Audio desk isn't close, must use single XLR to get ATEM XLR into TV StudioHD was fine.
Courtney?
Well, not quite sure if I understand I guess you're going at line level out of your audio desk. I don't have the ATEM Extreme ISO Gen 2. Doesn't that have XLR inputs with phantom power on it? You're using the ATEM as your audio interface, so any phase discrepancy comes in the driver to the Mac. So you might be able to reverse the phase, and I'm not sure what you're talking about the phase with. Is it between two channels? Is it between this channel when you mix it with something else? How are you determining that it's out of phase? So there's a lot of questions there. The 3.5 millimeter inputs are unbalanced. And so you're going from a balanced input to an unbalanced. It could be you could just use, if you're not using, if you're using line level, you could use a phase reverser, XLR, male to female phase reverser in the line that is going to go to the ATEM Extreme and see if that solves your problem. If you're discovering that it's out of phase, that's one possible way of doing it. The other way might be to reverse the phase in software. I don't know if you're, or in your mix panel, if it has a switch for phase reversal in there that will reverse the phase without reversing the power that it's needing if it's going in with phantom, if you're going to mic level. So there's a lot of questions there, but an external Y-split, when you Y-split, it's always a problem. You want to either isolate. If you want to take one signal and send it to two inputs, you're best to go through a transformer splitter isolator than just to parallel the outputs, or take one side. If it's a balanced output, take one side and send it to one side of an unbalanced, and the other side, the hot and the cool. Pin 2 and pin 3 are the two audio signal carriers on a standard 3-pin XLR. And if you take pin 2 and send it to one of the 3.5 millimeter inputs and pin 3 and send it to the other of the 3.5 millimeter inputs, those two will be out of phase. So that may have a consideration. So you might want to go into a balanced to unbalanced transformer.
Samuel? Issue is that the ATEM only can take in the unbalanced audio, and so what you really want to do is get the balanced audio into your system another way, if that's possible. So of course you can get the radial box or another box that would take balanced XLR and convert it to unbalanced, which may work, but probably a better solution would be try to look at your pipeline. If you can get balanced audio into your system, then you don't have to use the inputs in the ATEM altogether. Also, if you have XLR inputs in your cameras, then you can perhaps go into the camera with XLR and then go HDMI audio into the ATEM Extreme.
Alex?
I think that in this specific case, all those are great suggestions. In this specific case, I think that the ATEM is expecting a stereo signal, and you're giving it XLR. You're giving it an XLR female, so you're giving a mono signal that is going into something that it's not able to manage there. So I think that's probably why you're having a phase issue. I think that if you just get you were mentioning a Y split, but I think all you need is a 3.5 TRS to left and right XLR input, you will probably find that it's fine. You may have to split both of them, split that out and put two signals into it if you want a mono signal, or you can put a stereo signal in. But there's no way to put a balanced signal into it, and if you have a TRS, it's not going to be correct going into the switcher.
Yeah, those are all good suggestions, and I've actually run into this before. So just to build on that too, if you are so you're obviously sending a mono signal into the ATEM. The first thing that I would do before you buy any hardware is, if you go into your software control panel, go to the audio tab here, you're going to want to split those inputs, turn that stereo input into a mono input, and see if the problem goes away. Now, I have seen an issue with the ATEM where even if I feed it a proper stereo signal going in, I've seen an issue where if I switch if I sometimes switch XML profiles, I've had issues where I was experiencing this weird kind of phasey issue. And after looking at the recorded audio in Pro Tools, I discovered that the left channel was about 5 milliseconds behind the right channel. And this seems to be some kind of weird ATEM bug. It doesn't always happen consistently, which makes me really not trust the ATEM for audio. However, if you wanted to get it in properly, and some people already mentioned, there are a few different solution boxes out there. I own both of these. On the more expensive side, the Radial J ISO. I really like it. It's a more expensive box, but it's passive. Allows you to feed balanced XLR, so you can do a stereo balanced XLR input in there at line level, which is the key, not mic level. And then it comes out on the other end. You have different connections, and it gives you the option of connecting it to your ATEM using either a TRS direct out 1/8 inch or RCA. I would just use the TRS 1/8 inch. And then, of course, you have an output level trim, so you can really dial in how much signal, because you got to be careful. We were dealing with converting, +4 dBu professional outputs into consumer line level, which is -10 dBV. So totally different level in terms of actual signal strength going in. Courtney?
Yeah, I don't have the extreme ISO Gen 2, so I was going to ask if anybody has it. It does have XLR inputs on it. I was wondering why he's using the 3.5 in instead of the balanced XLR in, but maybe those XLR inputs are only set up for microphone and 48-volt powering. So I don't know, any of you would have the extreme ISO Gen 2, G2, if that is the case, if they're switchable to line input. So make sure that it's set to line input, mono input for each mic 1 and mic 2. And don't use a Y connector in any way, passive Y connector.
Let's go to the next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada asks, with the potential that DJI might be restricted from selling their drones in the U.S. market in the near future, is there any concerns that they will be focused to push a firmware update that grounds current models in U.S. airspace?
Courtney?
Well, it depends entirely on the government and the Federal Communications Commission, whether they're going to outlaw their video transmission and control transmission or not. And so that remains to be seen. They can, of course, you have to use an app to even log into those drones for the first time. So what the easy thing to do would be to push out a update to the app, and that would, use GPS to locate where you are. And if you're in the continental United States and Congress or somebody has put a law against it, they can easily disable it just through the app, not being able to log into it and authorize it and communicate with it. So they probably wouldn't have to download anything to the drone unless, at least for the Mini, it depends on which model you're talking about. Of course, they can't come to your house and take them away from you, but they can certainly use the app that you control the drone with and push out something that would disable it that way. I have a feeling they would have a lot of trouble with that. I think they may just probably limit sales of future drones until somebody cuts a deal under the table to enable or initiate some kind of software control or some third-party software interface for them that allows them to interface so that the government can extract some kind of super tariff from them.
Alex?
The irony is that if they thought that they were going to lose control, that the FCC could actually, or the government could actually ground it, they could send a firmware to the drone to say, stop listening. Like, and so you'd have to, the user would have to then initiate another firmware from a device to have it start listening again. So so literally, because I think that's what they would do. I don't think if they think the government's going to ground all of their hardware, what they would do is send out a firmware that would just turn off its ability to its willingness to talk to the, because they do that all to play nice with our government. Like all of that is there so that we can so that the FAA will allow them to do what they're doing. If they just sent out a command that said stop doing that, it would stop doing it. Like, and suddenly all those drones could go anywhere they want. There'd be no blackout areas, no anything. So I think that if they really thought they were going to lose, they would do that. I think they're going to figure it out. I think they're going to figure this out by the end of the year. It's a pretty devastating thing to a whole bunch of industries. Not just, you think about, we use them for film, but agriculture, construction. There's so many places, and nobody's close. Like I've used a lot of different drones. There's nobody that is close to the same quality as DJI. Now, maybe if you cut it off, other people will grow up in there, but it would set America back, in the drone area by a decade. And so what would happen is I think people would make a lot of trips to Canada because they could take their thing up to Canada and update it there, and everything would be registered in Canada. And do you think Canada would stop us from taking our drones up in this current environment and updating them there? No, probably not. So there'd be a whole, like the Canadians would probably be like, sure, yeah, you can do whatever you want. So anyway, then this is just the silliness that we're in right now. I don't think that there's any. I mean, I think that maybe DJI could provide some kind of security threat to us. I don't know what that would, in real terms, would be. I think that there are a lot of things that are a lot more of a security threat to us than the drones.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was just going to point out what Alex did, is that there's so many of these drones that are out there and used by police departments, fire departments, power companies to inspect power lines, farmers to do crop monitoring. There are thousands and thousands of them that are used in public service every day. And if you ground those overnight, it would cripple the emergency services of the United States. I mean, our representation currently in the country on both sides and everything else is pretty thin, intelligence-wise. So they're not going to understand the bigger thing. But as they get closer, it might become clearer. Like as the train is closer to their face, the fact that every fire department will blame them for everything that goes wrong, every police department will blame them. These representatives will just get ground into the ground by not having this work. So, and I think that I think they just need to train. They need to smell the diesel before they're going to make a change. But I'd be very surprised if they don't see that this would be insane, like for them to do this. So also, it involves two federal agencies that sometimes don't talk to each other: the FAA and the FCC. Well, the problem right now is that if nothing happens, then DJI is restricted. That's the issue. Is that you can always expect the government to do something. To not do something stupid. Yeah. You can always expect the government to not do something. You can't expect them to actually do something. So right now, if nobody does anything, DJI won't be able to sell or update after January 1. So they have to go through this registration process or whatever to persuade them to do something. But I mean, I think it would be political suicide and we don't get into politics here too much, but since it's touching on a piece of technology, it'd be political suicide to do this. Because again, there's going to be a lot of people that are talking about infrastructure, talking about, all these other things that, and of course the argument will be, well, they could take that all away from us if they were, I don't think China's coming here anytime soon. I don't think it's really, I'm not that worried about that. So anyway, I think that they'll see the light somewhere. If they really want to have something different, then take $100 billion and inject it into the United States economy to copy DJI. Give, if you really think this is a problem, but you can't just take the stuff away that's making everything work. I mean, that's the problem we're having right now is let's just pull a bunch of pieces out of a running train, and that's what we're doing, constantly right now. And it's just we can't keep pulling parts out of the train while it's running, and so I think that they're going to get it, but we'll see. I don't know. I have very low confidence
their ability to process.
See how this plays out. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, Tilta's handheld support system for DJI Mavic 4 Pro turns it into a handheld camera system. Why clip a drone's wings?
Samuel.
This is the system here. I actually thought it looked kind of silly to have the drone with a handheld rig, but the thing is you have the gimbal on it, so actually if you only have the drone and you don't have any other camera, then it makes sense to record internally in the drone and just use it as a gimbal. And of course you don't have the same options like with lens options and stuff. This looks like it has 3 lenses, this here drone here, but you don't have like the same lens option. So if you don't have a drone from before and you're not planning to get one, then of course a better solution would be to take it like a Ronin and RS2 or RS3 or RS4 maybe, and then like a simple mirrorless camera like a Sony ZV-E10 or maybe a Panasonic G7 or something like that. So that's what I would do but if you already have the drone, then it might be a good option.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, if you look at it here, this is if you have the drone and you wanted to, I can use it as something else, especially if you're trying to travel light, it might work well. You're trying to do a coverage of something, you bring your drone so you can do the aerial shots, you bring this little handheld thing. The reason the clips are there is because the wings will just hang. They're not stiff. So they'll just swing around. So if you're trying to do something, those little clips, those little propellers will swing all over the place. So you have to clip them together to keep them from rotating on their own. It's just like they're kind of limp. So just if you're swinging around, they're going to get in the way. So that's why they're there. And so so anyway, I will say I would never buy this outright to do it this way. Like I wouldn't make it I'm going to buy this thing and do it. But if I had a Mavic 4 and I wanted to be able to travel light and be able to have a wireless thing, like if you think about, you got to think about all the use cases. So if I'm doing real estate is a great example. I want to do walkthroughs of the house and I want to do a drone shot over it. And I just want to have a backpack and go to somewhere and keep it inexpensive. That might be something that I might use. But I agree with Samuel that most of the time I would pick a real system with a real camera. I don't think I would do this naturally unless I really felt like I needed to and I didn't have the money to buy anything else to do it.
Courtney.
Yeah, and I think this may be kind of a preventive step that Tilta's putting out there based on the previous question we were just talking about. If they're outlawing these drones from flying, this will still let you be able to at least use your camera and record something from the ground. If the government ends up banning sales of them, and there's thousands and thousands of them out there already in the market, you can kind of turn it into a poor man's Ronin 4 without the vertical height adjustment chicken head feature. So at least you could repurpose if you have one of the good cameras on your drone, and then you can also use if they're grounded, use the propellers to trim your facial hair. It's great for that.
Next question.
Can't hear you,
Can't
Jason.
hear you, Jason.
Sorry. Brody Hefner in New York City asks, when updating to a new primary Mac laptop, would the panelists recommend using Apple's Migration Assistant or a clean reinstall of apps, files, and settings?
Alex, go ahead.
I always clean install. So if I have a new Mac, I start over. I just start putting one thing on after another. I don't put on every app. I put on the apps as I need them. The ones that I need, I put on. I try to keep it as clean as possible. I think that you should never migrate. The only reason we do this is on Mac and PC, we will clone drives for computers that are used by lots of people that we can reset them. And we're just literally wiping out the entire computer to put something else in. So Carbon Cloner is what we've used in the past. I haven't done it for a long time, but that's how, we used to have, 30 or 40 Macs that were in the field. And when they came back, they just got reset back to their known state. So that's the that's the only thing that I would do. But otherwise, if it's my own personal computer, I always install things cleanly.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois asks, my studio is looking to start down the Dante path. Is there a basic or starter package?
Go ahead, Alex.
You have to figure out what you want to do. Like, so what is that studio doing? So the first thing to do is to map it out. The very first thing to do is to take the Dante certified courses. There's 3 of them, and I would highly recommend taking them. I haven't taken all of them. I've taken the first one. I keep on feeling like I should take the other ones. It's just a matter of time. But you should take the Dante courses first, so that you understand how it, all the bits and pieces of it. So that's the very first thing I would do. And then the second thing I would do is map out what all the things are that you're trying to do. What things need to integrate with it, what things need to be tied into it. Obviously, your first thing is probably going to be a mixer that is capable of Dante, and that for many mixers, that's a Dante card. So that's a card that's going to go into your Behringer, your Yamaha, your many other devices. Some of them already have it built into them, so that's probably going. Yeah, and by the way, those trainings are free. It's just your time to take them, So anyway, I would first take the Dante courses, and then I would map out what your studio needs to do and where the audio needs to go. The things that I think about a lot are, if you need a stage box, do you need the mixer is going to be the first thing for me, and then a stage box if you need it. A lot of times, as I said, when we tie things into Dante that are analog that we just don't have, we're not going to be able to grab onto. We're using a lot of Avios that just kind of converts everything to what we need. The in and out. So that's kind of like a little bit of glue that we kind of use for everything. But then there's lots of Focusrite makes a lot of great boxes that are going to let you integrate, a lot of, whether it's AES or analog or, other things back into Dante. You're going to want to look at like things like the RME makes a kind of a Dante box that lets you get to USB, we use it to convert to MADI. So there's a lot of other things that you can use there to make that happen.
Yeah, it's exciting to get into Dante. I started doing that last year. I would say that because the backbone of Dante audio is networking, it is so critical to make sure you read a lot of go through, like Alex said, the courses help. I haven't actually taken them yet just because I haven't had the time, but they have lots of documentation as well. And really the core, the backbone, the stuff that you need to make sure you get right is your network topology, making sure you have the right switches as well. And if you don't know a lot about network, like if I were to start over again, I have a Cisco switch, but it's mostly run by command line, which is incredibly frustrating. If I were to start over again, I would probably look at one of those M series network switches from Netgear, like the 4250 or whatever those are. They come in different configurations like 8, 16, 24, 48 port, and those ones support PoE, but they also have presets for a lot of AOIP protocols like Dante, like NDI. So it really takes a lot of the guesswork as far as, or a lot of, not guessing, but the knowledge that's required in exactly what are the optimal settings to make sure your Dante network is going to run reliably. There's also lots of people on the panel that are very experienced in Dante that you can always consult. We have a great Discord community. Mickey's also very knowledgeable. Shout out to him because I wouldn't be able to have this stuff running without him. So, and Alex, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting a little long in the tooth, so I don't know if I don't know whether to recommend it or not. But I will say that for a studio system, a friend of mine has a studio that a lot of the routing is all run with a BSS 806. Those have gotten pretty inexpensive to run, and they are like these basically a nodal Dante. We used them in the last studio we had. And what's nice about it is you can change the states of all the studios really, really fast. You just hit a button on an iPad and suddenly everything's different. And it ties into all these other tools that are made. And as the heart of kind of routing things, at that larger studio, it's kind of an amazing piece of hardware.
Just a reminder, you can continue to ask questions on this show, and one of the easiest ways that you can do that is by going to askofficehours.global. No login required. You can just put in your name and pop in your question there. We'll make sure we get it into the show. Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Guy Cochran in San Diego, California asks, what's new in DaVinci Resolve 20.1?
Alex.
The primary thing that's new, there's a lot of things. Every time Blackmagic updates Resolve, you just get how many engineers are working on it. I mean, there's just so many things that happen at one time. But the thing that I'm mostly focused on is that it is now supporting immersive, all the immersive workflows. And so still a work in progress, still kind of moving forward, but there's a lot of features in there that allow you now to ingest, to set up your projects, to export, do all the things that you need for immersive for the Apple Vision Pro. So the workflow there, you'll also see new tools for the Apple Spatial Audio format, which is a up to 7 order ambisonic system that is going to, I think you're going to see Apple do a lot more with this. One of the things that we're kind of seeing in the immersive, by the way, I would highly recommend if you're listening to this is to go ahead and download 20.1 if you've used it. Even if you haven't used it, you're going to want to try to. I think you're going to end up wanting to get the Studio or to download, because I think the tools that I'm using are in the Studio version, I believe. So we'll take a look at that, but you might want to use it in a demo form to play with it. But we're going to put out some footage soon. There's footage that Blackmagic already put out that is sample files, and we're going to work on those together soon. The reason we're not doing them immediately is because I have the camera right now, and I am resistant to taking any time to do anything other than shoot and plan to shoot. So we did a shoot on Friday. We're doing another shoot. We did another shoot yesterday. We're going to do some testing, and then before I give up the camera, we're going to do probably on Wednesday. We're going to do kind of I'm just going to turn the camera on, put another camera up, and we'll have a discussion in after hours about it. So you can all jump in and we can talk about it. I can walk you through it. Before I was going to do it right at the very beginning, but I think that I wanted to do it after I've done it a couple times so I can talk to you about it. Like, here are the things that actually, there's a bunch of assumptions that I had before I had the camera that are different than now that I have the camera. It is an amazing camera, and the Resolve workflow makes it relatively straightforward. I mean, I've not ever had it be so easy to build content for the headset. So really excited about it. And so we'll talk about it, and then we'll take some of the footage that we shot and make it available for all of you to play with. So we're gonna have little segments of stuff that you can play with there. Also, we'll talk more about the post. We'll be using some of the sample files from Blackmagic. We'll take some of the stuff that we've shot, or that I've shot, or a couple of us have shot together. And so we're going to be kind of continuing to do that this week, and then we'll have what we have for the moment. I have to send the camera back this week. But we're going to, it's going to be really interesting. But I think that's the thing that's the most exciting for us, is to be able to play with that. I'm sure that there's other things that Blackmagic did, but that's what most of us are paying attention to. There's a great, if you want to start thinking about it, there is on their support site, Blackmagic has the DaVinci Resolve Immersive Workflow Guide, which is pretty good as far as kind of getting your head around the workflow of how to set up Resolve for that, as well as the camera. But it's kind of a good overview of what that looks like. So it's that's the big. But the big thing is it finally made that available to the public, and so now we can start talking about post-production and what it looks like and everything else. So it's pretty cool.
I'm surprised, Alex, that you got to give that camera back. I mean, isn't every camera going to be just so quaint now that you've had that experience? It
is. I mean, it's probably there's been 3 cameras that I've been really excited about. And I've said this before, the F950, which isn't behind me, the Ozo, which is behind me. So I'm hoping to someday add the Blackmagic immersive to my wall of depreciation after a few hard years of work. It is I don't have usually these are all bought with projects. Like a project needs it, so I don't have that project yet. But I think that I'm pretty excited about about what the possibilities are. It's not just that the camera is doing spatial. It just does all the other things right. Being able to pull files off of it directly. The memory modules are great. The settings are great. The setup is great. The look, you can feel the interaction between Apple and Blackmagic. Apple's been doing Next. You can even see the DNA from NextVR. through Apple to the camera, and so just it feels much more mature than a camera that just came out from Blackmagic, and I think that's the thing that's really interesting is that it just feels like a very, very mature machine, and so and it has that it's very complete, and so there's still a lot that needs to be done, but it's just a fun thing to set up. Yesterday, let's see if I can show a picture of it. Yesterday, I shot it with a glass blower, and which was kind of cool. Let's see if I can pull it up here. This was I shoot a lot of images, so you might see. I might just kind of go through them because I haven't sorted them yet. So here you can see. So here's the camera here, and so here's the glass blower here, and so he's working with it. Now, one of the things that we did is you can see that little stool in the front. At one point, he walks up and steps on that stool right in front. Now, if I did the whole piece that way, that would be really too much. But him walking up and giving you this kind of surprise and delight moment is kind of cool. And so anyway, and you can kind of see this is the interface for the camera itself. And then, you literally bring this in. There's a little bit of a setup for the project, but you bring this in and you're working very, very quickly in Resolve. So it's it's pretty. And the fact that it sits in a known system being resolved, and then a lot of the tools obviously have been worked on for a while, so people have thought through the things that you're going to need to think through, and you can preview it inside of Resolve on your headset. And I will recommend, if any of you are thinking about this and there's a developer strap, you need it. There's a Wi-Fi version and a developer strap, and the developer strap is significantly faster, so it basically takes a USB-C into the computer. The Wi-Fi is pretty chunky. The developer strap is great. So anyway, but we're going to talk more about it. We're going to talk a lot about it over the next couple of weeks, because as we start to work in post, I wanted to get the opportunity to shoot with the camera for a week and just get my hands on it, and then we'll try to figure it out. Maybe we all come together, raise some money, and buy one, and then we can all become the world experts at Immersive. So we'll see.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, ARRI may be for sale according to Bloomberg. What is ARRI's position in the industry, and who would you like to see acquire ARRI?
Courtney.
Well, Paul, I think if you check your wallet, you might be a good candidate to buy ARRI. They're still pretty well positioned in the industry. They still have the basically primo catbird spot as providing cameras for most television and film production these days. Although there are new contenders coming up, they still have probably the majority of the business in their camera division. But a lot of people don't realize that they own a lot of subsidiaries, and I think what the ARRI group is doing is they're going to shed some of their subsidiaries. One of them, I think they've already made agreement, is Claypaky, which is the company that makes these automated lights that are out there. I think they've agreed to sell that division. And of course, there's ARRI Lighting, which is a whole separate division other than their cameras that provide standard stage and set lighting. So they may want to trim down and improve profitability. These camera companies like Panavision has been under 4 different ownerships or 5 different ownerships since I've come to Hollywood. So, and some of them have been like Max Factor owned them for a while, and then Lee Filters owned them for a while, and then they were with some hedge fund group owned them for a while. You didn't really know who owned them. And it didn't really matter much because the company was just a part of a bigger financial picture. So we'll see. I think they're probably going to hold on to the camera division without selling that off, because that's probably the most valuable position. And they're not fading from the industry, and there's a lot more production. They're feeling a lot of competition from the lower end, but for professional film and television, and with all the streaming providers out there kind of anxious for new content, a lot of them are going to still be using the ARRIs, the ARRI Alexas and Alexa Minis and all the other ARRI cameras that everyone tends to use. The film cameras, not so much.
Alex.
Yeah. I think that the hard part is that if you're at the top of that pyramid, it is of the production pyramid. That part is getting really small. so it's hard to keep your feet on it. So ARRI definitely is the standard for a lot of film. I mean, if you look at the number of high end films that are shot with ARRIs, it's 80%, of the there's some Reds, some Sonys, some Blackmagics, but really it's like 70-80% are done with ARRI. Part of that is just their color science is great. The other part is that when it works, it works. Like you turn it on, you hit the buttons, and there's not a lot of ways to get it into a bad settings, situation. And so a lot of production folks just really like to work with it, and they don't really care about the price because they're renting them, and the difference is not a big thing for them. The hard part they have is that they are a smaller company at this point than a company like, let's say, Blackmagic. So Blackmagic may have not caught them yet, but they're now, Blackmagic has a 65K camera out there, and I think some folks in our community are using it, and they're pretty impressed, by what they're shooting. So I think that the problem is that how do you keep up? I think they're looking down the road and looking at the tea leaves, and how do you keep up with a company that has a lot more money than you do and a lot more technical skill and a bigger pipeline than you do? And I think that that's something that they have to kind of keep in mind, is that there's a time to cash out, and they might be getting close to where that time is. Them talking to advisors could be years before they do anything. But if you look at, I think that if the movie industry was strong, I don't think that would be a problem. But the fact that the movie industry is not strong, and they're getting a lot of competition from companies that weren't really competition to them in the past, I think that doesn't bear well for the company there. They still build some of the best machinery sometimes, but being the best isn't necessarily the way why you win. So that's the challenge for ARRI. So it'll be interesting to see. And you can tell that they're a little bit tight. I know that there's a lot of drama with the Trinity because they updated the Trinity rig, which is not a camera, but their stabilization rig. And instead of just doing an incremental update for the owners, they wanted them to buy basically a whole new one, and that caused a pretty big backlash. And the problem is that is a whole bunch of people that are in high-end productions that aren't happy. So that becomes more complicated for them. So I think that they've kind of had a couple missteps there. It's still, again, it's incredible cameras to shoot with. I've shot with them in quite a few productions, and so hopefully they'll figure out a solution for it. But it's getting to be complicated in the film industry because there's no more filler. You either build really, really high end stuff, or you have to compete with YouTube. And I think that that's going to become harder and harder for anything to be done at scale. It doesn't affect the people at the top, but all the people in the middle that are just doing in the middle of content. And that's 70-80% of production is the middle content. That's why all these production studios, or one of the reasons all these production studios are empty.
Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia asks, have the panel members integrated ChatGPT 5 into their workflow?
Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, well, I've been playing with it and using it. I can't really say that I use it extremely much different than ChatGPT 4. I've been playing with some prompts with programming and stuff and comparing it with Claude. And my experience, I did the same prompt, like an advanced prompt for a simple web app. And I did it yesterday, and the Claude one worked better. The first iteration, I had problems, then I tried it again. It was better, and did the same mistakes as Claude. So as in design, then the apps looks better, like right out of the box, from ChatGPT 5 compared to Claude. In the design, but the functionality is still a little bit better in Claude in my limited experience. I also have been playing with image generation a lot. I'm gonna remodel my house, so I've taken a lot of images and then ask it to change different things and show me how it will look. So that's an interesting thing, but that's also been in ChatGPT 4. But I think it's a little bit better in 5.
If you like this show and you like what you're hearing, you can support Office Hours. There are a few different ways you can do that. One of the things you can do is you can volunteer. The show is entirely driven by our crew of volunteers, whether it's a panelist or maybe you want to dabble in some other part of the production. There are various roles available. So you can go to officehours.global/volunteer to find out about how to do that. Also, another thing that you can do is just share it with a friend, and you can also donate by going to officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Ajma Kajar in Cape Town, South Africa asks, considering implementing comms for my production moving forward, I've been exposed to Unity and office hours. Immediate is internal and external within a month. What should I consider in my plans and which system?
Alex?
Obviously, the one that we use a lot here is Unity, but I would really look at space comms. Jonas and others have put that together, and so I would be beta testing that from how to tie people in remotely especially for remote productions. What you want to think about also is what you want to do locally. So how do you want to tie things in if you have people that are there? So the question is, how much is virtual? If it's all virtual, then space comms could make sense for you. If you're doing it locally, you may want to think about a wired or wireless system. I've seen people use Hollylands the new generation. The first generation was not good. Like it was not good. But the newer version, I just worked on a project where guys were pretty aggressive with it. I was kind of surprised they were getting 800, 900 feet with the Hollylands, and that was kind of their go-to for something that's on the ground. In the past, mostly what I've used is, when we work in big productions, we might use something like a Rito, but a lot of what we do is build up from clear comms, and you can get hardware clear comms to do that, and to make that work, hardware systems. The other thing to look at is Studio Technologies has Dante-based boxes. So these can be up to 4 channels, 2 channels or 4 channels. So you can have a couple Dante boxes for you on the ground, and then that's relatively easy for you to tie in. And what I don't know about space comms is how that ties in, how space comms will tie in with multiple channels and so on and so forth. But you can tie that in. And in many cases, that might be one of the least expensive ways to do it. Give people some belt packs on the ground. The big thing is having people on the ground in belt packs and not in something like Unity and I haven't tested space comms like shoulder to shoulder, but you have a lot of latency in Unity or in these online ones. And so having a belt pack system that's on the ground that's going to give you zero latency. And what's nice again about the Studio Tech stuff, Studio Technologies, is it's Dante based, and so you're going to be a lot of interaction there. And then so we've used that a lot for smaller teams. So when we have 4, 5, 6 belt packs, the Studio Technologies has been pretty common for us, and we've used them in a lot of places. As soon as we go over that, building all the mix minuses, even with the Dante bridge that they make, it gets a little bit cumbersome. So that's where we start thinking about real system, fully blown systems to do that. So, but I would think about a mixture of the Studio Technologies and space comms would probably be the thing that I would consider there. So,
next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida asks, can someone recap the use ChatGPT to get the coordinates for the custom split screen layout mentioned in yesterday's Mimo live session announcement?
Alex.
I'm just going to let Alex do it. You can do it. I was like, I didn't see a hand up, so I tended to raise my hand to kind of like fill in, but I'll let you go ahead.
Oh man, we did some insanely complicated stuff that I didn't know Mimo Live can do. So yeah, so what this, Jeff, what you're referring to is in the workshop, one of the things that we've been working on, this has been a multi-part series over the course of the last month, where we've been building a template that we could use to cut the extra hours show, at least as an alternative, right? And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been hard at work trying to build in as much automation as possible. So for example, one of the things that we did was the ability to automatically populate a lower third with the Zoom participant's name. So this all involves scripting. So one of the things that we discovered with this specifically is also this is referenced to one of the layouts that we were using. So there's a layer in Mimo Live called split screen, right? And so basically, if you think about like a picture-in-picture or what Blackmagic calls a super source, you have boxes on the screen. So you can pick from predefined layouts, but there is also an option to select a custom layer. Now, if you select that custom option in that layer, it actually it relies on coordinates, pixel coordinates. So what we did was we used ChatGPT, and I should say it was Ronnie really came up with this really cool idea to use ChatGPT to basically give it a prompt that saying, this is what I want to accomplish with the boxes on this screen. This is the canvas resolution. Give me all of the coordinates that I need to put this in to make these boxes fit within that canvas. And so it gave us these coordinates, and we popped it in, and it looked fantastic. So that's what we're referencing here. Let's go to the next question.
Guy Cochran in San Diego, California asks, so what machine should you buy to edit Immersive in Resolve?
Alex.
Yeah, we're going to test a couple different things just to see what we can actually pull off. So right now we're using an M3 Ultra. It is the base M3 Ultra. And I actually don't think I don't think I would get that one again. I think that you either want to go lower and start lowering your resolutions or go higher. But I think that buying the base one is it's kind of in between. You paid a lot of money for it and it doesn't do exactly what you need it to do. So I think I would be careful about that. But you want to, if you really want to do this work professionally, you're going to start at an M3 Ultra. Like that's going to be entry level. And then you're going to probably want to go ahead and get the extra processing power. So that's going to be like $4,500 or something like that, or $5,500 or something to get into that. So I think that that's your entry level for that. But you can be editing these on an M1 Mac Studio and I'm going to test it all the way down to an M4. One of the things that I want to do is think about for going on site. I think I'm going to probably try to figure out a laptop, so that we can process things really quickly on site. And I just don't want all the gack, to do those things. I went on the shoot that I did yesterday. We didn't take anything on site. I knew what I knew. I could see what I needed to do from the camera. So I had a bigger monitor. I had a 17-inch Blackmagic monitor, one of the rack mountable ones, but it was on a stand. So I could look at it there. And what I did is I set up things like, I have the framing. The new update to the camera lets us see framing in the SDI out. So I was looking at the framing to make sure that did what I wanted it to do. I also made sure that I had one of my options was what I did. There's two SDI outs of the camera. So what I did is one of them is false color. So on the monitor, I just tap on the input and I can go to false color, which then I can start to make sure that everything's in range as far as exposure. But you're not panning and tilting or zooming or focusing. So it's really about lining up your shot, and having it there. So it's a little bit different. So I think that I would but I'd like to be able to process stuff if it was a longer shoot. But for actually editing, we're working on that. So we'll, we've only had the camera for 3 days, or 4 days. So but as we move forward, we're trying to figure out like, what are the settings that we're working on what are the settings to work with the footage, and then just know that it's going to be a long render, but it's going to be a long render no matter what. The M3 Ultra is taking, I did 3 minutes overnight with the M3 Ultra, and it is like 9 hours with noise reduction. So it's still going to take a long time to render. So you just have to know that rendering is a thing. And as someone who came out of CG, I'm not that scared of that, but it's going to be a lot. These are big files.
Alex, do you think that could change with if Apple updated the Mac Pro and put some kind of M5 Ultra super chip in there? Do you think that would be the computer people would buy?
Yeah, I think you can get work done obviously in these other machines. I think that it's just a function of that you just have to know that you have to set your proxy settings and everything else, and that's the part that we're kind of working on. We were so focused on shooting over the last little bit of time. Now we got to figure out all the post processes, and so we're just right now we're not trying to finish the post perfectly. We're just trying to kind of let's get a bunch of footage in the can so that we have time things, because I only have it for a week. So we're like shoot, and figure out what's working with the camera, and then go back and do some post, and then we'll be ready for the next time we get the camera.
It's really interesting that because of the close relationship between Apple and Blackmagic, I'm sure Apple's chip developers are probably looking at this problem going, what can we do?
I don't think that they're looking at this. This camera's still too small of a market for them to pay much attention to. But when you think about scientific calculations or anything, obviously the M5 chip, whenever that comes out, they started laying the pipes for that 3, 4, 5 years ago. So, it's not, there's nothing. They're not adjusting anything. It's just, but it'll be more powerful. But I would say that you can't, to get the full quality, like I'm going to work in front of a client or I'm going to work with a client, we're going to work on this. All I can say is all the things, like just, get a Mac Studio with all the power that you can get. But, there's a lot of, you can go a little bit smaller. And we should jump to the next, we'll go to Courtney, but let's get to the next question before we close out the show.
Courtney, go ahead.
Well, and if you want to wander outside that garden, because of the Mac architecture, are using the unified on-chip memory, you're kind of limited because you got that shared memory architecture, although it's very fast. What you need is more, not necessarily faster. So if you're really serious, you would go with a Threadripper, AMD Threadripper PC with maybe a 5090 RTX board from NVIDIA, which is like 4 times as powerful as the 4090. And with as much video RAM, which is dedicated on that video card, this will speed up rendering and display immensely. You can get up to 32 gigs of video RAM on the 5090. So go for that. It's going to cost a lot, but that kind of maxed out Windows system, although it's the Evil Empire, will give you a little bit better performance, I think, than any of the current M series. Who knows what the M5 will do and how much memory you'll have access to for video operations. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that I don't know if you would be able to. There's a lot of the immersive tools that, like the interaction with the Apple Vision Pro and all kinds of other things that wouldn't work on the PC. So you might be able to edit the thing, but you wouldn't be able to actually view it. Like while you're working. So those would be the difficult. There's an integration between there's a bunch of back-end integration between the Mac and the Apple Vision Pro. So if you're developing for the Apple Vision Pro, you're going to probably end up using a Mac.
Next question. You're muted, Jason.
Sorry, I was muted. Pedro G. Gonzalez III in Washington, D.C. asks, is there an M4 Mac Mini enough to edit and render the Blackmagic sample immersive files? Mac Studio?
Alex.
You should be able to do it. It is it's just a function of it's just a function of how long you're going to wait. So you're just going to have to think about, if you're using a smaller machine, there's going to be a lot of delays and a lot of long renders. If you're going to render anything out with a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, like an M1, you would probably want to have that machine dedicated to rendering because it's going to be rendering all the time to be able to knock any files out of any length. So that's the challenge you'll have.
Well, that wraps the show. Thanks to all the panelists for bringing your vast array of experience to the show and answering these questions. And of course, to you, the producers, we wouldn't have a show if you didn't ask these wonderful questions. And of course, the back-end crew of volunteers that wakes up every single day to put this show on. It takes a small village. Thank you to the incredible work that you do. If we were to have traveled around the world to answer all these questions according to the Talalic Traversal, it would have been 32,000 miles. That's 51,000 kilometers and 251 million bananas for scale. All right, let's jump into After Hours. See ya.
I think my render just finished. I'm going to go check it out.
Yay.
Hopefully it's right after 10
hours.
hours.
Yeah, exactly. It won't be. Like you're still experimenting, but we're like, let's turn
I believe remote
the
playout will work, so I could actually see this over the internet, but I bet that'd be a little chunky.
Yeah, I'll send you.
You have an outboard box and a NVIDIA card on that?
No, not since the M series.
Yeah.
All righty then. Ciao.
See ya.
Take care.